What's happening, people? What you saying? Hope you're well. Welcome back to the show. Thought we would do another fans debate and get some of our lovable fans on weekly to talk about the weekend's football and what we've seen. Let's be honest, in the news a couple of days, it's been absolutely mad in terms of what we're hearing. Betting scandals, people coming out slagging off their football clubs. It's absolutely beautiful when it ain't happening to your football clubs, isn't it, boys? But I have to say, big up to Billy, big up to Dave, and big up to Ash. All four of us had an unbelievable weekend of football. To top it off, going into the World Cup, we know we're going to come back now with a little bit of momentum. Certainly, Billy's going to be happy about Unai Emery's first two games. Dave looks like he's going to be having a smile on his face now that Steve Cooper has got Nottingham Forest playing. And Ash has finally, after being 4 or 5 weeks on this show, depressed, has finally picked up some W's. And it's looking like Leicester could be heading towards the top half of the table when we come back from the World Cup. Great to see you three. We should have a couple of lads joining us in a little while, hopefully. And if not, it's just us four, and I'm more than happy with that as well. Billy, we might as well start with you, man, because Unai Emery is proving some people wrong. There's a lot of Arsenal fans and a lot of football fans in particular that felt that he did a shocking job at Arsenal. I never thought he did a shocking job. And I think I said to you last week and the week before that I thought he did a very good job. I just didn't think that he was backed. Certainly didn't have the backing that Mikel Arteta has had. But having said that, he's turned up at Aston Villa and he's taken two, I would say, very, very good teams on and beaten them both. Manchester United are playing great football. Brighton, likewise, are playing great football. And he's managed to get, a victory in both of them. I always thought Aston Villa were better than Steven Gerrard was making them out to be. I look at that first 11 and think, why are they looking so crap? Obviously, I was right. He wasn't a great manager anyway. And now you're showing what a good manager can do with the same crop of players. And I always said, Billy, that when you look at what Arsene Wenger left Unai Emery, it wasn't that great, if I'm honest. That's a couple good players like Aaron Ramsey and Mesut Ozil. But when you look at what he did have, they were okay players. Alex Iwobi, Danny Welbeck, Nacho Monreal, El Neni, Socrates, Mustafi, David Luiz. The list goes on, right? But he did what he could do with that team, and he managed to get it to Europa League final 1 point off the top four. Now he got sacked, and rightly so, because it down tools on him and he'd lost the dressing room, etc. But you can just see straight away he's picking up a team that looked terrible under Gerrard that he's got him playing in 2 weeks worth of football. And he's got 6 points out of 6, mate. So you must be a happy bunny, bruv.
I'm buzzing, mate, to be honest with you. And you know what? The best thing about all of this is that it doesn't feel like it's just a new manager bounce. It feels like we're just a tactically astute team now, if you know what I mean. We're hardworking, we're determined, we've got grit to our side as well, which we saw against Brighton. They put us under so much pressure for the last 10, 15, 20 minutes. So much pressure. We were just able to grind it out with a good, sturdy base and structure to our game. And I mean, I'm just so excited to see where he can take us. I think the game against Brighton was huge for us because it's a massive psychological boost. You look at the table, you consider how bad Villa have been this season. You look at the table and we're still 12th going into the second half of the season. That's huge. Not like I just said, psychologically for the players, for Emery himself, for the club, for the fans, and also for players that want to come in or that we want to come in. They're not looking at a relegation. We're not sat 17th, 16th. That's not the Aston Villa that they're going to be coming into now, thinking, well, if I come in and things don't go quite so well, am I going to be in the Championship next season? They're not really going to be thinking it, although it's still very tight, don't get me wrong. They're not necessarily going to be thinking, looking at the table, thinking if things go wrong, I'm going to be in the Championship. So it was a massive game on Sunday. And I'm just so glad that we managed to grind out the 3 points. I think it was deserved. There's a couple of refereeing decisions, particularly the Brighton penalty. I mean, I've got my own opinion on that. I think I'd be screaming for it if it was Villa. To be honest with you, I'd be absolutely livid. But at the same time, I think that McAllister was lucky to get away with a foul on Douglas Luiz for the opening goal. He steps across him, wins none of the ball. 2 minutes later, the referee's giving a foul for a very similar thing that Kamara did on a Brighton player. So it was one of them. I think the fact that it led to a goal and the referee didn't call it there and then, it's one of them that goes into the grey area of it's not enough to turn over. But 2 minutes later, a player makes the exact same challenge pretty much, and it's called up for a foul. So it's the little inconsistencies like that. I mean, it was 1-1 in my opinion on the refereeing decisions. But yeah, and then Douglas Luiz goes and does the exact same thing that McAllister did to McAllister for our second goal. So it was nice for him to get a bit of revenge as well.
Yeah, listen, there's definitely been a change. I don't really think there's been a change of personnel. I think Emery, as I said, has used the same side, but there has been some players that have really impressed me in those two games. Jacob Ramsey is one of them. I've always liked this kid, and I think he's a talent. And I'm not so sure that Gerrard really got the best out of him, which is a madness thing to say, considering he's a sort of player that Gerrard you'd think would love to get a hold of and say, you're similar to how I played in terms of your attributes. If he could be half as good as Steven Gerrard, Villa fans would be buzzing. So I think when you look at that individual, that must fill you with confidence. And also, I think that we're going to see a couple of more players that come into their own under Unai Emery. I think Leon Bailey is going to be one of those. I also think you're going to see Danny Ings scoring goals again. So I think it's exciting times for you, Bill. The only thing I'll say, mate, I'm not sure that I want this Douglas Luiz, right? And I don't think we're going to get him now, by the way. But when we were linked with him, I was a bit like, meh, is that going to massively improve Arsenal? And I watched him since then, and I don't know. I see quite a lot of faults to his game, if I'm honest with you. And I think you could probably do better. And I remember we have having a conversation, and you saying Boubacar Kamara, John McGinn, and Buendia are normally our three. And I was like, so Douglas Luiz doesn't even play for Villa? What the hell is he coming to us for? This is mad. So I don't know. I see again, yes, some mistakes in his game the other day. I just wanted to get your opinion on a player, man, and if you think he'd be a good player for Arsenal, or if he'd just be a player that hardly got a kick.
To be honest with you, I think for your starting 11, he probably doesn't get in there because of quite how good Partey and Xhaka are together, particularly how good they've been this season as well. So he probably doesn't start for you because of those reasons. But for Villa, I really like Douglas Luiz, to be honest with you. That he does have the odd mistake in him. He's not a strong number 6. He's very much the Brazilian flair player that we have. But the thing is, there's a noticeable difference when he's not in the team, because he can spray that 40-yard pass the other side of the pitch, whereas John McGinn may do it, but it's probably going to go out. It's probably going to go out of touch. Whereas Douglas Luiz doing it straight to feet. And I think when he's got the responsibility to be that big presence, the number 6, he struggles. He is more of a number 8. And Gerrard, a lot of the time, because of Kamara's injury, and I mean, last season we didn't have Kamara, of course. That's where Douglas Luiz was playing in that number 6. And I remember saying to you, Dan, ages ago, that we need a big number 6. We need that big player. Dendonker's the perfect player to kind of play alongside him. Now we've got Kamara back fit, obviously. He'll be the man to play alongside him and be that big kind of the one that breaks up play, the one that really gets stuck in, whereas Douglas Luiz is a little bit more flair. He progresses the ball, comes out with the ball, plays that pass, might get on the end of an odd shot here and there, that kind of thing. So yeah, I really like Douglas Luiz personally, because what he brings to the table. He wasn't really getting played under Gerrard, particularly this season when Kamara was fit, because that's Steven Gerrard. He should have been playing week in, week out, in my opinion, over McGinn, who hasn't really been performing for a long time now. Emery brought him back in for the Brighton game, and I've got to admit he was fantastic. So yeah, it's an interesting one with McGinn, really, because like I say, he's not been playing very well for a long time now. And I do think that Emery will give him a new lease of life. He was playing in a different position. He was playing on that left wing, kind of centre mid position. It's kind of weird how Emery plays, because he has those two wingers kind of as centre mids who kind of help out with the defence, but can push on as well. And just you mentioned Jacob Ramsey there is a perfect segue onto him, really, because he will thrive doing that. I think he's going to be the one now that is that more attacking winger. So he's going to just bob on, get on the end of those deliveries into the box, those drag backs into the box, that kind of thing. And I saw a really interesting video with, it was Ben Foster with Neil Cutler, the former Villa goalkeeper coach, just recently lost his job because of the new guys coming in. And he mentioned Jacob Ramsey, and he said under Gerrard he didn't really have a position. He was, because he's such a versatile player, he doesn't really know whether he's playing in a number 10, number 8, and he hasn't been able to nail down that position. He hasn't really known where he's going to play every week. So I think under Emery, that's his position, and it's his position to lose. And I just think he'll thrive now. So I'm really excited for JJ as well.
Yeah, I must admit, Ash, when they signed, or when they got, I don't know if you called it signed when you get a new manager, when they got Unai Emery in, I must admit, I always thought they were going to be going one place, and that was up. And some people will say, well, of course they are, because they were a shambles under Gerrard. But I never expected Emery to come in and need 5 or 6 games to settle and understand who the players are, because I do rate him. I think he's a very good manager. I think he's proven that. What do you expect from Villa now under Unai Emery, Ash?
They're definitely going to be, I think they're pushing for top half, 1,000,000%, because we all know that everything Emery's touched, he's done a great job at. I think I've said previously before, even Arsenal, I still felt he'd done a good job with the team of players he had. And Villa just look lively again. They look excellent to watch. They look exciting. They look solid, and the passion's there. And from watching them, you can tell that the fans are right back behind them, even from the very first game, that like the United game. They were absolutely on fire for the players, and Emery seems up for it as well. So I think now they've got to be pushing top half. I think they'll get a couple of new additions in January, probably ones that Emery wants in, and you'll see more of his style of play come in then. And you know, the ambition, we all know that Emery is a specialist in the UEFA Cup, so the ambition has got to be to get in that and give it a good go now, I think, for Aston Villa.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, being realistic, Dave, like with Aston Villa, I personally feel like Conference League push is probably a bit 1-2 step too far, because I do think this is a mad league at the moment. I think there's probably 7 clubs that I think are pretty much guaranteed Conference League up. I think Newcastle and the Big 6 are pretty much that, right? So I think that could be, and listen, anything can happen in football. I mean, crikey, the way that top 6 at the moment are playing, who knows what's going to happen, right? But I think if you was to give Aston Villa a top half finish now, and I know, you know, I'll ask you this, Dave, as opposed to Billy, I think they'd take that 100%. And Unai Emery has an unbelievable record with the Europa League, right? But it's a cup competition, which means that if you give them a cup run and a top half finish, Aston Villa fans are going to be well happy with that. So can Unai Emery, you know, maybe a day out at Wembley and a top half finish? He's the sort of manager that can do that with Villa, really, Dave?
Absolutely, Dan. I mean, with Villa, I think if you'd said a cup run and a top half finish to Villa fans at the start of the season, I think they really would have liked a little bit more. My personal view of Villa, got a lot of time for their squad. It's so much quality there. And I had Villa as being the other one alongside Newcastle to get into that top half and look for that Europa League, Europa Conference spot. Obviously, then they had a very poor start to the season. They were very sluggish. They came to us on a Monday night, and it was an awful game. We weren't great, and Villa, given the clear talent in that squad, you look at Buendia, you look at Jacob Ramsey, Ollie Watkins, Danny, Ezri Konsa, Emi Martinez. It's a superb squad. They were deeply disappointed. I think now, with that little bit of hindsight and having had that start, I think the Villa fans, Dan, would devour that offer that you're making to them of an FA Cup run and a top half finish. And I think Villa are eminently capable of that. I mean, the game on Sunday, I actually went out and watched some kids football near to where I live and came in, and Villa were 2-1 up. My old man had been watching it, and I said, "What do you reckon?" He said, "Brighton are good, but Villa are better." And I think Villa now should be looking to really push on and make the most of that innate talent that's in that squad. They've got so many good players, Villa. But what's taken me by surprise, we all know Unai's pedigree is an excellent one, especially from his years with Sevilla. But I'm kind of surprised he's done it in like 2 games. And as you say, Dan, the level of competition that they faced in those 2 games, Manchester United, who were outclassed, I thought, on the day, one deflection apart, Villa would have had a clean sheet. Were excellent, terrific Villa, like they had been against Brentford a while back when I think Danksy was in charge. And then to go to Brighton. I mean, we went to Brighton and we got a 0-0 draw. We were celebrating like we won the World Cup, that night. So I think honestly, anybody going to the Amex Stadium, given how good Brighton are on the pitch, given how well organised and well run Brighton are off the pitch, I think Brighton and Hove Albion is a club, certainly for Nottingham Forest to kind of aspire to want to emulate. I think that's a brilliant win for Villa, and I think Villa really should be top up. In fact, of the 4 of us here, I actually think you 3 will finish top half. If we can finish anywhere in the bottom half, above 17, above 18th, I'll be happy. But I really think that Villa are a smashing side with some really good, a top half squad. I think exactly the same about Leicester City, and obviously Arsenal, as I've said before, are the revelation this season. But I think Aston Villa now, I don't know. I mean, maybe the break isn't good for Villa. I don't know, because they were just getting up ahead of steam. But it is what it is. But I do think in Emery they've got a pragmatic manager who, as you say, Dan, I almost think that he kind of never stood a chance at Arsenal, really. I think he was a good man doing good things and never liked the mockery of his accent. I thought that was disgraceful, almost bigoted, to be honest with you, and very stupid. When you're judging somebody on their looks and their accent, it's time to leave the room. Judge them on their, on their character and what they do. And I felt sorry for him at Arsenal, because I really like the guy. And maybe, Villa is a match made not in heaven, but in Birmingham that suits him, And actually, weirdly, I always wanted, because I've always been a massive fan of him as a bloke and as a player, I always wanted Steven Gerrard to be that good manager for Villa.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, it is now looking like that he was the thing that was stymieing everybody. I'm sure he'll come back. He's a good guy, Steven Gerrard. I'm sure he'll find another club. I think he'll drop to the Championship and do good things and come back, if you like, in the Michael Carrick way that Michael Carrick is now at Middlesbrough. But Villa have been terrific these last couple of weeks. Even in the 4-2 loss in the Carabao, Villa played some really good football. So I think it's the only way's up for Villa at the moment.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think it will be. And Bill, just lastly, cut run on the top half, mate. It snapped my arm off, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I said from I said from the beginning of the season that I just want a top half finish, and that was without a cup run. So if we could add an FA Cup run or even the trophy to that, I'd be over the moon, to be honest with you.
Fair play, man. Fair play to you. Might as well move to you, Ash, because there's a lot of rumours around James Maddison and Tielemans, but they're 2 players I just keep talking about, man. They've just been unbelievable for you this season. They really have. And I know it's not just been them. Danny Ward is turning his season around. It is those 2. But I do look at some of Leicester's players at the moment, and I start to look at the reasons as to why perhaps everyone was jumping on their grave a bit too early. And Brendan Rodgers' grave, to be fair, a bit too early, because they have picked it up. And Dave's got a right to say that he thinks Leicester will probably be pushing for the top half because they've got the squad to do it. I think when you look at what your new centre-half's done, I think he's come in and been fantastic. He looks a really good centre-half. You've done it again, really. You go and get these centre-halves just from anywhere. I never heard of them, by the way, half of them, and then you go and do it, And I remember when Morgan and Hoof were there and everyone laughed and they went and won the league. And then after that, you lost them. And then you got Maguire, and then someone said, "Oh, can we have 80 million?" Yeah, please, that'll do us. 80 million, you can have him. And then you replace him. You replace Mahrez with Harvey Barnes, another player I think is unbelievable. Wesley Fofana. You go and Kante goes, you get Ndidi. It's just unbelievable scouting at Leicester. It really is, mate. And what I wanted to mention, along with Maddison and Tielemans, because they have been outstanding, is Harvey Barnes. Because I think with Harvey Barnes, if it weren't for injuries, I actually think he'd actually be right up there knocking on the door as well. Because I know we talk about Saka, Sterling, Grealish and Foden. But when you look at wingers that are actually playing really well at the moment, they're young and we talk about, he's right up there for me. I really like this kid. And I think that if you keep him fit, Ash, you've got a great chance of doing some serious stuff with this kid. He's brilliant.
Absolutely, yeah. I was thinking the same. Watching him the last couple of games, you sit there and think, how far away is he from sort of getting a chance at with England and a call up to show himself at that level? Because when he's on form, he's more than good enough. He's an excellent outright winger. He's very attacking. He's exciting to watch. He doesn't seem a massive personality either. He gets in there, does his job, and gets away. And I just rate him. Like you say, he's young, he's exciting. And why can't he be as good as those that you've just mentioned? Your Sakas, your Sterlings, and he's got all the potential to go and do it.
Can I just say, Ash, I saw Harvey interviewed this week, and I was really struck by how cheerful and pleasant a guy he is, how articulate he is. He's a really intelligent guy, Harvey. I don't know what he was on. He was being interviewed by, he's been interviewed by one of the girls on Sky Sports, and he just came across as a really nice kid, and he's a smart lad from what I can see. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was that the interview, I'm guessing, where he said like the international breaks probably come at a bad time for us.
Yeah. He looked like he got the sort of sense of humour that most footballers don't have. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's the sense you get from him down the ground as well, watching him sort of week in, week out, that he's just sort of gets there, does his thing, got a bit of a sense of humour, but not too serious about himself, if that makes sense to you in that kind of terms. And I just do. I think he's got every chance of being right up there with the wingers in England. He's exciting. And like you say, with our recruitment is second to none. We've lost players like you say, Kante. We've lost Drinkwater even, who was massive for us. You've got Maguire, Fofana. We lose Schmeichel and everybody goes into meltdown thinking that Danny Ward's useless. And now he's up until Newcastle played, he had the most clean sheets in the Premier League. And like you say, Leicester just keep seeming to pull these gems out from nowhere, and they end up moving on for silly amounts of money. And Leicester fans can't really be too disgruntled with that setup, because over the past few years, because of it, we've watched Leicester City win the league. We've seen them in the Champions League. We've seen them in the UEFA Cup, the new league, the European League. We got to the Conference League. We got to the semi-finals in that, and obviously we've won the FA Cup as well. And this is whilst all this movement's going on. So it is exciting at Leicester. It's never a standstill club where you really see the same lineup, because we are a team that sort of your Chelsea's like to cherry pick, and Man United and Arsenal. We are, because we're bringing through the right recruitment. And ultimately, these players are going to want to go and play Champions League football every season if they're good enough. And that's where Leicester kind of fall short. But at the minute, we're bringing in the right replacement. So I can only be happy,
Who's responsible for that, Ash? Like your scouting? Is it Walsh still, or is he gone? Who's your scouting?
No, Walsh went to Everton. I believe they've got rid of him. I'm sure Rudkin's our head of recruitment still, John Rudkin. In terms of the scouting, I know we was bringing somebody in. Again, I think there was visa issues, the same as the set piece coach, but I'm not too sure if they're through the door yet. I hope they are for January, because the reports down here are saying that we have got a bit of money to spend in January.
Well, I'd like to think so, as soon as you did nothing in the summer.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And we got sort of what was it we got for Fofana in the end? Was it 65? Was it 60?
No, 80, I thought. 85, wasn't it?
million, there we go. So, and all we did is spent £15 million on Wout Faes, who seems to be just as good a centre-back, if not better at the minute. Like, obviously, I know Fofana's injured, but he made a couple of mistakes for Chelsea before he picked up that knock. And they had a few dodgy results with him at the back. But our new centre-back now, I'm happy with him.
Yeah, he looks good, man. He does look
Class
good. I've got
act.
to ask you. I've got to ask you, and it's obviously come up in the chat. Will Leicester look to cash in on Tielemans in January, or are you going to risk losing him on a free in the summer? Now, I'll tell you what I think, Ash, and I'll come to you. We want him, from what I'm being told. I'm being told very, very, very reliably that we are massively interested in this Tielemans deal in January. Now, I know that me and you had a show about it, talking about it in the summer, saying you thought he was going to come to Arsenal.
Yeah.
But we didn't want to pay the money for whatever reason. Leicester were asking for close to 40 million. We weren't happy to pay that. We were happy to wait. Now, I'm going to tell you where I'm at with this. I'm not going to talk from an Arsenal perspective or a Leicester fan's perspective. I'm going to talk from a Leicester City Football Club perspective. I don't see why they would want to sell this guy now. I don't see the point of it at all. I think when you look at what Leicester City do with and without Tielemans, they're definitely better with him. And if you've got any chance this season of saying, do you know what? Look, I know you want to go, Yuri Tielemans. You are going to go at the end of the season. Give us the last few months or whatever it be, 6 months, and you can go and pick whoever you want and get a massive contract with a big club. But stick with us for now. And likewise with Maddison, I don't see either of them to. I think you as a club will be stupid to sell either of those in January when you're just starting to pick stuff up now.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, I'm glad you said at the end it was the reason you got money is because you've got sold Fofana, because I thought it might have been the reason you got money is because you're going to sell Tielemans and you're going to get some money. But I don't think you will sell him, but I wanted to see what you're hearing and see what you think will happen with Tielemans, mate.
Yeah, well, the latest sort of rumours, again, that I'm hearing is that they're actually going to try and tie him into a short-term contract, like a year or two. And if something turns his head, then they're going to listen to offers. And that would be best for both parties, really, because Leicester City don't lose out on a fantastic player for next to nothing. And at the same time, Tielemans is openly being told that if there is something that turns his head, there'd be no sort of you signed a contract kind of thing, like the backlash that Fofana got almost, because he'd just signed a 4-year contract and went a couple of months later. But I think that's what you'll see happening. Out of the two, I do think Tielemans will go first before Maddison. Leicester will do absolutely everything to keep hold of James Maddison as long as they can. He's absolutely outstanding, and he is still in contract. I think he's got a couple of years left on his contract too, I believe. So with Maddison, we'll be fighting to keep hold of him. But Tielemans, maybe I can see him going next summer, and maybe Maddison. But I think we'll keep hold of Maddison for a little while. Maybe the World Cup could change that, though. We all know that if a player goes to the World Cup and has an outstanding World Cup, these big teams just throw ridiculous amounts of money at players, don't they? It happened when Rodriguez played really well for Colombia that time. He went for massive after that, didn't he? And then just sort of fell off the face of the earth, didn't he? So
overrated, man. Overrated. Yeah. Never rated him. Never understood that one.
It's called going to Everton, Ash.
Yeah, exactly. That's him. But I can see something like that happening if Maddison has an excellent World Cup. But if not, I think we'll hold on to Maddison for a while. But Tielemans, realistically, if we do tie him up into this sort of short-term contract where we earn a bit off him and get it next summer, I think that's the most realistic thing that will happen.
What Ash doesn't want, he doesn't want an England-Belgium World Cup final with Wout Faes, who I think has been fantastic, and James Maddison and Yuri Tielemans all having brilliant games in a World Cup final, mate.
Absolutely.
You don't want that.
That's what I mean, because this is what we forget, really. Like this, Wout Faes has obviously been called up to Belgium. He's a Belgian international.
Yeah.
We've got £15 million and he's playing out of his skin. He's an absolute snatch for us,
Yeah.
And if he does go and have a solid World Cup, his club form is absolutely off the scale at the minute. And if he does it for country at the World Cup, again, we could be looking for a new centre-back if this big money comes in.
Imagine, mate. Imagine. Do you know what, mate? I'll be honest with you. Old man's up. I got it wrong about that Wout Faes. Because I saw him play against Spurs, 6-2. So with my brother-in-law, and I thought, who's this geezer with the hair that Leicester have got? They are in serious trouble if they're going to get him as their only player. They've just lost 6-2. And he goes, he looks awful, doesn't he? Absolutely terrible. And then the next game, he played really well. And I thought, oh, okay, fair play. Maybe it was a one-off.
Against
and then
us.
it's got better and better. Yeah, it was against Forest.
Yeah. I think that was his first game, Dan. I think that was his first game. And they threw him in at the deep end. And, you know, I agree with you. I've seen glimpses of him being nice on the ball, but he looked frail, didn't he, in that first appearance? But since then, he's been absolutely outstanding. He made a slight little mistake against Bournemouth, which cost us the game. He passed the ball a bit short back to Ward, but both of them were low on confidence at the time. But since then, he's been absolutely on fire, and I look forward to watching him at the minute. You know, he carries the ball to the halfway line like Maguire used to for us and release a sensible pass. He's tracking back. He's got fire in his belly. You see him commanding the line all the time, and that's just what you need in a centre back, isn't it?
I've been impressed with him, man. I have since you brought him in. I didn't know anything about the lad at all. So when he's come in, I've been fair play to you. Do you think, just lastly on this, Ash, do you think that Youri Tielemans will end up at Arsenal?
Do you know what? I do. I think he could more than go to Arsenal. The two teams that are being linked to him all the time are Arsenal and Real Madrid. My concern is I don't think he'd get full game time at Real Madrid. And it would devastate me to see Youri Tielemans go to a team that he sits on the bench. We know, I'm not bashing them, but Man City are famous for this, aren't they? Signing players from clubs and they're doing great, and then they never see the light of day again. And I'll be absolutely devastated if that happens for Tielemans. But realistically, I think he gets in the Arsenal squad, and I think he improves that Arsenal team, and he'd be a great addition.
Yeah, we all like him. A lot of people I speak to are like, oh, yeah, I wouldn't mind that. The only thing is, I will say, Granit Xhaka is bloody playing out of his skin. So if he does come, he's got to fight to get in this side. It's mad, isn't it? I never thought I'd say that. I remember in the summer thinking, oh, God, we didn't get bloody Tielemans. We're going to have Xhaka playing every game again. This is a disgrace. And he's been one of our best, well, probably, he has been our best player this season, Granit Xhaka. It's been mad how good he's been. It's absolutely nuts. But yeah, I think it'd be a great signing. Out of the two, I'd want Maddison. He's probably outside of De Bruyne for me. He's the best attacking midfielder in the league. I just don't understand how someone can be that good, mate. I look at him and just think, how are you still at Leicester? Like, no disrespect, Ash, he is ridiculously good. Like, unbelievable. What a player. I'm so glad he's at the England side. I'm so glad he didn't get injured, because when I saw him go off, for God's sake, you're joking me. He's finally got called up and he's got injured. But I hope he has a great tournament, man, because I'm a big fan of him. I bet you'd be gutted if you lose him, Ash, won't you?
Absolutely. Like, how much did the game change when he went off against West Ham for 40 minutes? It was like a swing of the pendulum, wasn't it? Like, they literally started dominating possession, getting chances, zipping balls through. And, like, Maddison was controlling that game until... But, again, he knew what he was doing. He felt something slightly uncomfortable. Who in the right minds would risk their biggest chance as a football player? When you're 1-0 up, you're in cruise control of the game, which we were at the time. I know we were only 1-0 up, but we looked very comfortable until Maddison went off, and then they sort of started dominating. But the second goal settled us down. But I'd be devastated if we lost James Maddison. It realistically could happen if he goes out there and gets a good tournament and gets the chance to play. Because I think if he gets the chance to play, he will be great. He's just a great player. But it's whether Southgate will give him the nod, or whether Southgate is going to stick to his ways and be very stubborn and get the goal and then shut up shop, which is, we all know that Southgate's very good for inviting pressure onto.
Let's not even go there, mate. We all know what that's going to be. This starting 11 has got to be one of the worst backlines I've seen England ever have. It's absolutely embarrassing. It really is shocking. But there we go. Dave, let's talk to you, man. I want to put a couple of comments up. One of them's a nice one, actually. Mark saying, Dan, has Dave got a channel?
No, I haven't, Mark. And luckily for humanity and YouTube and all the media out there, Talk Sport, you can rest easy. I will not be having a channel. Actually, Mark, just say thank you so much to Mark. He put some nice comments on last week. I do go back and read them later. I don't read them while we're doing it. So it's very kind words of his. But no, there'll be no channel. Mum's 85, Dad's 84. Neither of them can get out of the house. I've got too much on my plate with that, as well as going to the City Ground and various other venues around the country. Maybe
play to
maybe
you,
in
man.
years to come, but by then I'll be in my 60s, and it's a young man's game. Do you know what I mean? I'm not as good looking as Potsy or Billy or Ash, so be long gone by then.
Well, there's some one place you can find Dave is obviously
And it's
his
nice that
door on
my
top.
boss, there he is, there's my gaffer there. I have to report into him after this show. Yeah, we are wondering where D is. But then again, you know, when Forest have lost, my boss has gone missing, hasn't he? And he sent me out, you know what I mean? I'm like that government minister sent out to protect whoever's made a mistake somewhere else. Do you know what I mean?
Listen, I do need to get Dor back on him, man, because I love him and I
Yeah.
miss him. But isn't it funny that D can't make it again tonight?
It is. It's hilarious.
It is rather funny that D can't
Yeah.
make it again. But
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, he's got to work apparently, and when Palace win, when we come back, he'll manage to get up on the show. Once they
Yeah.
pick up 3 points, we tend to see him, but he likes to disappear when he don't. But no, it's all love, man. It's all love. Steve Cooper's got you playing, Dave. It's looking good, bro. 22 players that look like headless chickens not long ago, and now it's looking like he's got it right, mate. And long may it continue. You know, I like Forest. So what have you made of it, man?
Well, let me just say this, chaps. First thing I must say is that it's a bit of a Midlands taker. We've got Aston Villa, Leicester City, and Nottingham Forest. So we're outnumbering London tonight, or Colchester,
It's never a
or
bad
wherever it
thing.
may be. So that's nice and actually, a while back, there was this kind of trend of what's happening in Midlands football, and now here we all are, and things are picking up a little bit. And I can honestly say to you, lovely lads, that I've just had the best week as a Nottingham Forest supporter since May the 29th, which was, you know, probably the greatest day since the great days. And you know, I thought we were unlucky not to beat Brentford. We were playing lovely until VAR stepped in. Then we had a bit of we allowed it to affect us, but then we came back strong. We got something. The Tottenham game was like we were slightly puzzled by Steve's selection, but it worked out beautifully. He made quite a few changes. I think he made 9 changes to Tottenham's 4, and our lads played lovely against Tottenham. Deserved the win. Should have won by more. Tottenham were a deep disappointment.
Good.
I think, you know, you could actually say that quite a lot of theirs were like looking towards Qatar, whereas our lads were looking towards getting to Blackburn in the next round. And then you kind of, what you hope for then is like Forest have given a glimpse into what they're capable of, and the gradual process, that kind of incremental improvement that they've made. And then you kind of think, right, we want to take it into what is a very tough game against Crystal Palace, because, you know, whatever said, we're all said and done, Palace have been established, and they've got some real talent. I mean, 3 in particular that everybody who plays against Crystal Palace is going to pick out. So to see our lads play like they did, they didn't have it all their own way, but to see them play like they did was extremely satisfying. I mean, the way the game went, Palace started well. I thought Palace had more of the ball. Wilf dinked one over after a couple of minutes. Then obviously the penalty, which I felt was a penalty. And then I'm leaning back in my chair in the Trent end thinking, oh God, here we go, 1-0 down. And dear old Wilf saw my face and thought, there's Dave Asprey, what a lovely fella, I'll miss it for him. And he skimmed it off the outside of the post. And from that moment on, there was only one team in it. Now, Patrick at half time would have said, hey, don't let this game run away with you. But second half, it was always going to be Forest to win. And the goal obviously VAR evened itself out. And I thought our lads were well worth the win. I thought the atmosphere in the City Ground was absolutely rocking. It felt like the 12th man did its job. You know, lots of people have been saying about the atmosphere in the City Ground that you know, if you're an away supporter, it's one of the grounds to go to you know, sample that atmosphere. And I thought that Saturday our fans were fantastic. In fact, at the start of the game, just before kick, we did the remembrance. The last post was observed beautifully by everybody, Palace fans as well as ours. And then as soon as the game started, we looked into the away end, and I could see right into the away end. There was all these black-clad, what looked like Crystal Palace ultras, right, with 2 huge banners and flares and all that. It was more like we were at Boca Juniors or in or something, right? And then they were asked who they were, who are you, and all that business. But basically, after about 10 or 15 minutes, those Crystal Palace ultras became very, very quiet, and the Forest fans were very, very loud. But the thing I take from it most is that there was no sense of 22 guys just having met each other. That has gone. And I saw a lot of lads who are really pulling together. They seem to have a really good spirit. I've watched a bunch of stuff that the club puts out from behind the scenes. They have a thing called bench cam, which is quite revealing because, it shows the subs. When things are happening on the field, it shows the subs. You do not see any hint of sulking or why am I not in the team or not joining in. The ones off the field join in with what goes on the field. So when, Jesse scored the other night and when, Morgan scored the week before, these lads are getting out and they're all enjoying each other's company and they seem to be enjoying it. When one of them has some success, they all join in. And I think that for us is crucial. And I think that hard job that Steve has had, I think he's beginning to get it molded now. I mean, if you think about it, what I like as well is that our World Cup boys, so Brennan, Nico, Remo Freuler, who's going with Switzerland, Cheku, who's going with Senegal, those guys, Wayne Hennessy against Tottenham came in. Every one of those guys played as if they didn't know they were going to a World Cup. And I thought that was really commendable and honest. And Forest have been honest this last couple of weeks. And the other thing is people like Renan Lodi had come from Atletico Madrid, deeply disappointing. But Willy Bolly, weren't sure. They've been excellent the last two games. So Cook and McKenna have gone out. Willy's come in with Joe Worrell, and they've had 2 clean sheets. And in fact, if you look at our last 6 games, take out being outclassed by the kind of slightly runaway league leaders, who I thought were terrific that day, the other 5 games, we've had a draw at Brighton, we've beaten Liverpool, we've drawn with Brentford, beat Tottenham. So there's 4 clean sheets in the last 6 games in all competitions. So from that, nadir, if you like, at Leicester, where we're like, where do we go from here? We've just been beaten 4-0 and played off the park. Forest have Arsenal and aberration aside. Forest have become really hard to beat. And I think that the spirit in the squad is excellent at the moment. You just get a sense from the body language, lads, that they all want to play for Steve. They all want to play for the club. They all want to play for the city. There seems to be a nice connection now between what's going on off the field and what's going on, on it. And I just think that it's really nice for us. I mean, I've been saying on here, and as you know, I've never shirked the issue that I thought we're the weakest team in the league. But if tables don't lie, then at the moment, Wolverhampton Wanderers and Southampton are weaker than we are. Yeah. And I think you haven't yet seen the best of Nottingham Forest. I really think, and we've got 2 incredibly difficult games when we come back. I mean, it's like, Leicester have got Newcastle and Liverpool when they come back, which for Ash is really difficult. I'm not sure if Villa have got. We've got to go to Old Trafford and then play Chelsea at home. So we might be talking in a few weeks.
Liverpool and Spurs for Villa.
Who is it, Billy?
Liverpool on Boxing Day, Spurs on New Year's Day.
Oh, so we're all united.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all united in like how difficult it's going to be. But no, I'm really proud of our lads. I mean, I'm very protective, and I'm not one for slagging him off. And there have been pockets of Cooper out, but I'll tell you now, he had his name sung to him for 90 minutes to do that game. And at the moment, we're going to be, the way I look at it is we're going to be 2.5 months unbeaten in the Premier League, which at the start of this year, if you'd have said, Dave, that'll be the case, I'd have said, what magic mushrooms are you imbibing? Do you know what I mean? So, no, couldn't be happier at the moment, lads.
Mate, you deserve it, man. And I really wanted this to be a Nottingham Forest start, if I'm honest. That's really what I wanted. Because I like Forest, I like your fans, I like your stadium, I like your club. And I think that when a team like that gets back into the Premier League, it's always a good thing. I always wanted to see the teams like Leeds come back in. I'd love to see Ipswich Town back up there. They're a massive club as well. And what they've done in the 70s and 80s. So I look at those teams and think, when are they going to get back in it? At the same time, I do respect everyone that gets to the Premier League because it's a bloody hard thing to do. It's hard to get up there and it's hard to stay up there. But what I will say, Dave, and I mean this when I say it, there's 3 worse teams than Forest for me out there at the moment. And that must be a good thing for you because at one stage it looked like you're dead and buried. And Ash, you can probably say the same, to be honest. Leicester and Forest, you're both looking at each other on here every week going, any of us going to pick up 3 points soon?
Botsy, I've just thought of something, actually. Forest have started to play better ever since I came on this podcast. Maybe.
Good omen.
If we get to the end of the season and Forest are 17th and we've survived on goal difference, somebody say, well, who's your man of the season? Well, I guess it'll have to be Dan Potts. Do you know what I mean?
Well, mate, if it's good luck to you, then you got to keep coming on, man. You're always welcome.
Mate,
and,
absolutely. But
I must admit, I do think I feel for Southampton at the moment. I think they're going to struggle.
Definitely, they're going to go.
I think they're going to really struggle.
If you put me on the spot, lads, Saints, Wolves, and Everton look really vulnerable to me.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think the Leeds defeat at Tottenham is very damaging for them after what they've done the two previous games. So we've all we more than anybody, we've still got a hell of a lot of work to do. So we're none of us getting carried away, but it's a nicer position to be in.
Yeah, 100. And I said it at the start of the season, and I had people laugh at me. And me and Kev Campbell disagreed about it because obviously he used to play for him. I said Everton will go down, and I still stand by it. I think they look dreadful at times, absolutely dreadful. They can't score for toffee, excuse the pun, and they might be okay at the back now with Cody and Tarkowski. But if you can't score goals, you ain't going to win games. It's as simple as that. And they don't look like scoring goals. When Alex Iwobi is your best performer, boys, you are in trouble, aren't you? Do you know what I mean? Like, let's be honest.
We peppered them like when we were there. We were by far the better team, Leicester, and we absolutely made them look a level below. Whereas West Ham the week after put up a lot more of a fight. So I don't worry for West Ham as such.
No. West Ham will be. Ash, actually, I watched Leicester at Everton. And I thought that was by far your best performance of the season. I know you won at Wolves. I mean, the weird one at Wolves was you had 5 shots to their 21, and you won 4-0. But I thought Leicester at Everton was a complete performance, mate. It was superb.
Yeah, I agree with that. I thought
any team that Steven Gerrard's got 100% win rate against is
they're in trouble.
To say the very least.
I said Lampard. I said Lampard and Gerrard won't last the season, and I stand by it. I honestly do. I don't rate either of them. I think Everton could go down. Bournemouth for that sort of side. I actually think Gary O'Neill's done a really good job with them to be there. But you can't be 2-0 up and lose 3-2 and then be 3-1 up and lose 4-3. You just can't do that. You know what I mean? So they have to look at themselves. But I hope Forest do it, man. I really do. Listen, boys, I want to talk about a couple of things before we do wrap up, and it don't involve any of our clubs, but I think it's important. Tonight, Ivan Toney has got himself in some serious trouble. Over 200, I think it's 223 betting that are scandals. It's just, I don't understand how people police this or get any understanding of how that happens. But he's been found out and he's been fined, and there's rumours that it's going to be further than that. I wanted to talk about this because you obviously know I'm going to go on about Ronaldo after it as well, because I think that needs to be mentioned. But in general, I'm just disappointed by this sort of news in football now. Both of them. Ronaldo coming out, Ivan Toney coming out. This would not have happened years and years ago. And I think it just shows now that the player power is just so far ahead of everyone else now. I never, ever thought that going back to your days, Dave, that players would have done this under Cloughy. You would never have done this under Sir Alex Ferguson. You wouldn't have done it under Arsene Wenger. You wouldn't have done it under Sir Bobby Robson.
Saunders.
There's so many managers you look at back now and think these guys would not get away with it. They've got the world at their feet. Some of them are 19 years old. Some of them are 26. Some of them are 37 and still think they're God's gift. This is sad times, if I'm honest, because football's a great, great sport. It's the beautiful game for a reason. But I
think we've lost it, haven't we?
Right, lads, what should we talk about?
Change subject completely.
Anyway, about Arsenal. Late score coming in, Midlands football 1, London football 0. and Potsy, I put the kibosh on him.
No. Talking of Ivan Toney, though, will Brentford play him even now? When is that it? Is he will he be suspended from his club, or is he just facing a fine?
I don't think a player like Ivan Toney and the importance that he has at Brentford, I don't think that they'll do it just for that reason. To be honest with you, I think it'd be a massive statement if they did, but I just don't think they can afford to because of the team that they are. He's back.
Hey!
That is the fastest toilet break I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I tell you, I don't know what happened there. I carried on talking.
Ivan Toney sort of burst in on you, Potsy. I think that's what
That's
it is,
what it
mate.
was. Yeah, Ivan Toney heard me talking about him. I just heard Billy go, "I think we've lost him," and I was like, "Hey," I was like mid talking still, but there we go. Listen, this Ivan Toney thing, we might as well start with it. Billy, I heard you talking coming in. Like, I don't know what happens with both these players. Really, we can kind of touch on both of them before we wrap up. Start with Ivan Toney, like in this betting scandal. We don't know much about it other than what we've heard last minute tonight, the last couple of hours. But mad and sad, really, Billy.
Yeah, it is. What I was talking about, Ash just put the question to us that do we think that Brentford will suspend him from playing for them? Because to be honest with you, I do think that that's possibly a reason why he wasn't called up from by England as well, with this kind of looming in it on the background. So that could be another reason as to many, as well as Gareth Southgate being a bit clueless as to why he wasn't called up. But yeah, I was just saying, I don't think that he will get suspended by Brentford just because of the importance of the player. I think if he leaves, then they are pretty much down, even from the good position that they're, or fairly decent enough position that they're in now. You lose a player like Toney for as many games as what we've got in the rest of the season, and they will be struggling. And you could probably call them relegation candidates now if that was the case. I think had it have been a youngster or a fringe player or something like that, absolutely they'd be getting rid of him. But I just, because of the player that he is and the importance that he has at that club, I just don't think that'll be the case. And it is sad that this kind of thing's happening. I'm amazed that it's taken this long for it to come out, from 2017, I think it is, isn't it? Something ridiculous like that. I'm just amazed that it's taken so long, really.
I think what's frustrated me as well, Bill, is I really like this player, by the way. I'll put that out there first. I think he's an outstanding talent, and I loved him at the weekend. But what I will say is whenever he's been interviewed,
he's got
a lot
again.
of my Arsenal fan mates have a nightmare, comes across bad. Do you know what I mean? And I think personally, he's kind of done that now, and he's proven that. Do you know what I mean? He's proven that he's a bit of a rebel. And there's quite a few of my Arsenal mates that are like, "Nah, don't want him. Just don't want him." And I'm like, "Really? He's absolutely wicked." Now, I disagree. I'd still have him because I think he's unbelievable. But it does in the back of my mind think, are you a bit of a naughty boy? Do you know what I mean? So maybe that ain't going to fit in with what we're trying to build, because obviously we're all about culture, etc. Apparently my Wi-Fi is up and down, by the way, people. So apologies if I'm going out in and out of signal. Dave, I'll let you take over, man. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, I think in this day and age, with so much technology and gadgetry and social media, footballers have to be very, very careful what they leave themselves open to. And I think it's a very tricky situation for Brentford, because Brentford to this point have been a very clean club. There's no mud that you can throw at Brentford Football Club. And I think the people who run Brentford Football Club, who, to my way of thinking, they're up there with Brighton for being excellent administrators of their club and excellent owners. I'm not sure I take Billy's point that Ivan is such a talisman for them, in the same way, if you like, that Mitrovic is for Fulham, whatever. But there's a bit of me thinks that, like, Brentford might be worried about any reputational damage that comes back to them, and I think they may make an example of Ivan. I mean, I've got a week ago's experience of Brentford without Ivan, because they came to us in that 2-2 draw, and Ivan was he was suspended because he picked up so many yellow cards. And they scored twice, and his replacement, Visser, had a hand in both goals. But if I'm saying to you three guys, I kind of think Forest ought to have won that match. Then had Toney been there, my eventual take on the game might have been different. So it's difficult to know what Brentford will do. I mean, it's historical thing. I mean, there's this thing about, historical tweets and historical Facebook posts and historical, things on Instagram and all that. I mean, like you say, Dan, is there this army of minions buried away somewhere who are just like, searching through, scrolling through people's output, looking for that one moment that does them in? What he did 5 years ago, he might be a completely different person now. I mean, I'm guessing 5 years ago, he'd be at Peterborough or wherever he was before that. But unfortunately, he's left himself open to scrutiny. And I think that is a tricky situation for him personally, and a tricky situation for Brentford Football Club, because, as you say, we've all been on this podcast, and we've had us four and all the rest of the lads, and I think there's a general sense of kind of admiration of Brentford for what they've done and how they've conducted themselves. So I think it's a really difficult one. If I was Ivan, I'd come clean and say, look, I did this. I was a silly boy. I shouldn't have done it. And then, a frank and sincere apology, and you whatever levy is put on you, what punishment comes, you take it like a man, and then you move on and say, right, I put that behind me. But what I think Brentford will do and what I think Ivan will do, I really couldn't tell you.
Listen, I think it's an interesting one. Ash Cliff's put in a super chat. Big up, Cliff. Says, Dan, mate, I don't think you can say it wouldn't have happened back then. I'm sure players placed a few bob on a match day back in the day, but press protect.
Actually, Dan, let me tell you, I mean, me being the age I am, way before you lads were born, back in the 1960s, there was a Sheffield Wednesday betting scandal involving a guy called David Lane. And there was another guy who was an England international at the time. I can't remember his name, who played for Sheffield Wednesday, and those two were found to have been engaged in betting, and I think their careers were ruined as a result. I think Wednesday might have sacked them. I mean, obviously that was the 60s, where, as you say, Dan, players in many ways they were like kind of lesser people in the club, and they did as they were told. Nowadays, it's a different world. Do you know what I mean? So there are precedents, whether Brentford sack him or discipline him. I think they'll discipline him, but as Billy says, because of who he is and how much he means to them on and off the field, because he's their image, if you like. How severe that punishment will be, I really don't know.
Yeah, I quite agree. I think as well, Ash, I get what Cliff's saying there. I do, in terms of it did happen before. I think the difference was there was a lot more respect from the manager and the people around them. And I think now sometimes when we see these sort of things happen, it just proves to me that footballers can think they can get away with whatever they want. And this comes into the Ronaldo side of things as well. Ash, let's move on to the Ronaldo thing quick, because I actually think some of the stuff he said was fair. But on the other hand, I don't think there's any Man United fans sitting there going, wow, I'm glad he's told us that, because I didn't see any of that stuff behind the scenes. I think every Man United fan knew their club was in the shambles. They've been, 10 years nearly without a Premier League title. They've been in absolute turmoil. They've got recruitment very, very wrong. Stuff behind the scenes has been a madness. The Glazers have been nothing but poison. They've hiring Ralph Rangnick, who was a scout, and then he goes, actually, I don't fancy even being that. I'll just go and manage Austria, please, rather than being here. There's a hell of a lot he got right. You don't do that, mate. Not in this way. And, I know Piers Morgan's a gooner, but he's not exactly the best bloke to get on the best of sides with, come out and do an interview with. So he's got this all wrong, Ash, hasn't he?
He absolutely has. I mean, as a professional player, like you say, a lot of the fans know what's going on at Man United already. There's a reason they've not been at the top of the footballing tree in England for a while, since Sir Alex Ferguson left. But when a team is paying you that much money every single week, I'm sorry, you be a professional. And this is where it comes into it. Like, Ronaldo can put his case across as much as he wants that he is the sorry party in all of this and being mistreated. But because you've got Ronaldo on the back of your shirt, in my opinion, doesn't mean that you've got to work any less hard than any of them players in that dressing room. Get your heels in. And if you want to play for Man United, be a professional. And I think what he's done is he's not got his own way. We've seen it in the past before with Portugal, with him throwing his captain's armband around, trying to almost manage teams in finals, in the Europa final, the Championships finals. We've seen him getting above his stations historically in football since he's had sort of, world-class player status. And I think it's doing him no good. He's coming towards the end of his career now. He's probably tarnished a reputation that was fantastic at Man United for winning Champions Leagues and Premier Leagues in the golden era. And now, people are going to look at the end of his Man United career in disarray at the fact that he was a bit of a brat, in my opinion, and threw his toys out on an interview with Piers Morgan, who we all know he's going to splash it absolutely everywhere. Like you say, he's a goon of it. He don't miss a trick, does he? Let's face it. And his media past just shows how much he's willing to throw people under the bus.
This is a guy, by the way, I'll just say, this is a guy who said, I don't understand Mikel Arteta at all, absolute nightmare. And then 4 games into this season, he went, I'm trusting this process. This is brilliant. Now, I can't talk because I didn't trust the process, right? But I've stuck by it and said, let's not lose my head. Let's calm down. It's been a great start. Still a long way to go, blah, blah, blah. He's like, we're going to win the league. Arteta's unbelievable. It's just absolutely mad.
And now he's saying Ronaldo will be the man to win you the league.
Ronaldo's going to win us the league, he reckons now. This guy is unbelievably deluded.
I tell you what, lads. You look at the clubs that us four support. So you've got Arsenal who are playing lovely football, top of the league. You've got Leicester now on an upturn, Villa on an upturn, us on an upturn, a bit more gradual. But our 4 clubs are built on really good team spirit, everybody pulling in the same direction, and the most important quality that I think any human being should ever possess, and that is humility, right? Yeah. And that, to me, last week, I tell you what, if he'd have been a Forest fan, I'd have wanted him sacked on the spot. I found him, I mean, the stats are thrust in my face about this guy, but I find him objectionable. I have sympathy for any, his bereavement. That's a dreadful thing to happen, and I have total sympathy for that. And again, anybody should have that. But his conduct was the height of indiscretion. And I think what's happened, 2 things have happened with Cristiano Ronaldo. One, his body has started to fail him at last, and he's raging. In the words of Dylan Thomas, the great poet, he's raging against the dying of the light. And he has got a real psychological battle now to deal with that. And he also knows that because of that, and because of the other stuff and the baggage, nobody wants him. I think the only place he can now find a place to play football is with a club in Portugal. Somebody in Portugal, Maritimo, Faroense, Sporting, Vitória Guimarães, somebody like that would take him. Let him go there and do that. But how disrespectful to the Manchester United players. The other thing I think has happened is that he's met, he could bully Ralph Rangnick around, because Ralph Rangnick was never understood at Manchester United. He's a professor, an academic, far too intelligent a man to waste his time managing a football team, in truth. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, a decent man. Now, Ronaldo could say, this training's boring, I'm not joining in, whatever. Erik ten Hag is a bit more granity. And I think Ronaldo keeps running up against Erik and bouncing off him, and it's going nowhere. And I think what you saw there was the ultimate embodiment of a man being reminded that nobody, and this goes for Alex Ferguson at Manchester United, Brian Clough at Nottingham Forest, nobody is bigger than the institution that they represent at that particular moment in time. Absolutely. And I tell you what, if he was a Forest, I looked at our lads at the weekend. They were all helping each other, all pulling for each other. These are supposed to be 22 and never going to get on. I see it with Aston Villa. I see it with Leicester City. I saw it a couple of weeks ago again. A wonderful Arsenal performance against my team. They were a joy to watch, Arsenal. Lads pulling together. It's about the collective. And if he was a Nottingham, if Cristiano Ronaldo was a Nottingham Forest fan, I'd have sacked him for 2 reasons. A, for going to talking to the most indiscreet journalist in this country, and also for betraying our lovely lads. Right. Yeah. So I think that I'm sorry, I've no sympathy for Ronaldo at all. All bridges burnt.
This is
I think it's facts.
Also, Ferg, like, we look at situations in the past. Look at Beckham when he started getting a bit sort of in the limelight, media, sweetheart and everything. Fergie was having none of it. He was gone, wasn't he? He was gone. He had stitches in his eyebrow and he was off on a
yeah.
But like Dan pointed on earlier, this is how much it's changed. But obviously, the world of social media has changed a lot of things as well. It's a lot easier to reach out to the whole world now, and these players can put a case over a lot easier, and people can pick up on it.
I tell you what, actually, that's a really good point, Ash. And if you're talking about social media, obviously the person at Nottingham Forest that sticks out, you all know what I'm going to say, is Jesse. But I'm telling you, Jesse came with all this stuff, and my fear was, I was a bit like behind me things like, please, Jesse, don't play into their narrative. Well, I'll tell you what, he wasn't great for all, but this last week, Jesse Lingard has become a proper Nottingham Forest player. He was outstanding against Tottenham, and you kind of think, right, Jesse, you need to do it again. And I thought he did it against Palace. And so our guy, he's fitting in. He was the one that everybody suspected would rock the boat. But Jesse, I get a sense from what I see that they all really love him. He's funny. He makes them laugh. I tell you what he does. He goes and puts his arm around the stewards. He shakes hands with the policeman. He just looks like
he's probably recruiting them for Instagram Live, Dave. He's probably getting them all in for his Instagram, like, you know what I mean? Come on Instagram with me. Come and do a selfie. No, I'm joking. He has been good the last couple of weeks. He has been.
But yeah, genuinely, like touching back on sort of the Ronaldo thing, there's no way he's ever. We all know. I think we're all in agreement. He's never going to put a Man United shirt on again. It's been timed absolutely cunningly and perfectly by the pair of them and the management around them as well, because he's dropped a bombshell and disappeared on a plane to Qatar. So. Yeah, imagine even a manager like, we talk about the Cloughys and everybody like that, but even somebody like Roy Keane, would he have stood for it? I don't think, and like you say, Dave, I think he's met a character in Ten Hag who's got a bit of a headstrong view, and he's just not standing for it. Like, he's not keeping Ronaldo's temper.
I think as well, Ronaldo's... Sorry, Dave. Just quickly, I think Ronaldo for his whole career pretty much has been surrounded by people who tell him that he's the greatest thing on earth.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's turning and he can't accept it. And he's gone on with Piers Morgan, who himself absolutely adores Ronaldo, will not have a bad word said against Ronaldo.
Yeah.
And it all seems a little bit too convenient.
Yeah. He's getting like Trump, isn't he? Don't you think, Billy? Trump's had a crap week. Trump and Ronaldo, they're both big mates of Piers Morgan. That man's a gent. If I was Trump or Ronaldo, come speak to Dave Asprey, not Piers Morgan. Go speak to Dan Potts. Actually, speak to Mrs. Potts. She's the best person to speak to. You know what I mean?
I'm absolutely gutted because I always lent towards Ronaldo than Messi. But do you know what? This interview has absolutely ruined it for me. It's really, really put me off him. Like,
I was always Messi over Ronaldo, mate. Always preferred Messi.
Yeah, you got it right.
It's hard because with that debate, like, you can debate both because they're both unreal, right?
Yeah.
But that was why I never really fell out with people who said, "Oh, it's Ronaldo who's better." I say, "Oh, okay, that's fair enough. I prefer Messi, but I can't argue that Ronaldo is useless." But there was always something about Ronaldo I hated about his attitude. And this just proves to me what it was. Absolutely like disgraceful, if I'm honest with you. But what I would just say to wrap up, right, and I'll come to you, Billy, on this, because Ten Hag, for me, fair play. Like, you sniffed it out straight away. You had the balls to say, sorry, mate, you just ain't going to be playing. We're better without you. Bruno looks a complete mess when he plays with you. When you're out of the team, he plays brilliantly well. We've got Christian Eriksen doing the same thing. I'm happy to give Rashford and Martial time. They look like they're scoring goals without Ronaldo in the side. While he was playing with him, they couldn't kick the ball. So for me, I think fair play to Ten Hag. And I actually see some comparisons with what he's picked up to what Arteta picked up in terms of the culture and some of the big name players. Pogba was a bit of an Ozil. He's been cleared out. He's now got the Aubameyang situation with Ronaldo, who's coming out and causing problems. He's going to have to deal with that. He's dealt with it in a good way. And I think, Billy, Ten Hag is probably one of the best things that can happen to Man United in this time, because I've been really impressed with him from day dot, to be fair, Bill.
Yeah, I have as well, to be honest with you. And I think he's a very good manager. And I think if we was to secretly ask Ten Hag, is he glad that this kind of thing's happened? I think he's probably glad that it's happened to Ronaldo, because who better to make an example of? It's a case of, if I'm going to pick on Ronaldo for doing this, then I'm going to pick on all of you as well.
Yeah,
and I think it's the perfect one to pick out, for that example, and it instantly lays down that marker. If it was Rashford, for example, Ronaldo would still think, well, if it was me, it'd let me off. I can still do what I want, kind of thing. But it's really laid down a marker to say, any of you, I don't care if you're the greatest player ever to play the game, which in my opinion he isn't, but anyway, or Marcus Rashford, or even this Garnacho kid that's coming up. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
If you don't want to follow my rules that I'm putting down, then I don't care about you, and you can go for all I care. And I really rate him for that.
Yeah, 100%, boys, 100%. Listen, lads, been an absolute pleasure as always, and I feel weird saying this, but that is it for Premier League football for a few weeks. I hate to say that because I never thought I'd say it this time of the year, but I can't get behind this World Cup, but I'm going to have to try because it's upon us. I would enjoy it as a football fan, but I can't say I'm sitting there buzzing for it. But maybe it will change when the games start playing and we get into it. As Billy said, 4 games a day pretty much at the moment is going to be in the next couple. So let's enjoy that. Dave, always a pleasure. Ash, likewise. Billy, likewise. We're going to be doing something different next week onwards. We're going to be doing quite a few debates between all of our fans, not just different shows. You're going to see a lot of these boys mixing in with each other, talking about all things sport, talking about all things football, looking at combined 11s, looking at team debates, looking at statements and whether they believe they're true, false, or just absolutely ludicrous. It should be some good fun, and I'm looking forward to it. It's always a pleasure chatting to you guys and everyone in the chat. Big up. There's still 200 of you watching live. Absolutely brilliant. Smash a like if you can on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And good luck to everyone tonight at the Football Content Awards. I couldn't make it tonight. Absolutely brilliant. Everyone that does all football content, no matter who you are, whether you've got 1 million followers, 1 follower, it doesn't bother me. You're all doing stuff for content and for people that wanted to that want to listen to people's the fan base in terms of football. So good luck to everyone tonight. I hope that you all get the awards that you do deserve, and please have a great night because it is an absolutely superb night out, and I'm gutted that I couldn't be there in Manchester tonight, but work commitments did not allow it. I was there last year in London and it was an absolute blast, so I do wish you all the best of luck. Boys, absolute pleasure. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time, and until then, up the Arsenal. Take care.